Carrie. So conditional award. Essentially, at that point, the design-build contractor has accepted the project. So now TxDOT and the contractor are going to work out the details of the contract agreement and so forth. But as the project management or program management consultant, our role, we've actually been involved during procurement. And that's what I'm about to talk to you a little bit about now. When I say we're involved, we're putting together our teams who are going to help TxDOT with the oversight and all the compliance reviews. The process begins actually with kickoff meetings, with task force meetings. We start developing the flow charts and all the checklists. I would say it's quite an extensive process, but it's a process that works. Everything that we do has a defined meaning and has a defined definition. That way it's clear to everyone. There are no unknowns. Don said it one time, he said, we want to show them what we want to tell them what we want, and then we want to manage the expectations so that it's all very clear, not only for the contractor, but also for us as the consultant, to make sure that TxDOT ultimately gets a good product and that the contractor has complied with the law. It all begins, actually, SB 18 brought in some new notices and some requirements for making bona fide offers. So we had to implement all of those into our flow charts. We start with notices from TxDOT, then the contractor will send their notices to let property owners know, here's the project and here's who you're going to be dealing with. Everything we do, as I said, is defined by the Uniform Act, SB 18, of course all the TxDOT right-of-way manuals, and then we have to incorporate also some of the local ordinances. Those really come into play, especially with cities and counties, when they've got some ordinances that maybe include setback rules or inability to re-erect signs, whatever it may be. We kind of have to do our homework early to make sure we've incorporated all of those into our workflow. In many cases, TxDOT will do some advanced acquisition. They may do it as a way to maybe mitigate some issues. Maybe it's to help advance the schedule, but always the schedule, and I'm sorry, Ryan, I keep pointing to you, but that's who he is. It always belongs to the contractor, and everything that we do, it is always keeping in mind that we're going to explain to the contractor what the expectations are, but we're never going to, or try as best, never going to affect their schedule. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a second as far as delay goes. The program is solution driven. With that, it means that the contractor, they're responsible for the design. They're also responsible for providing all of the acquisition services that are going to be necessary to acquire the right-of-way, to relocate any businesses or families or personal property that's on the right-of-way. They have to certify that the right-of-way that they are acquiring is actually needed for the project. And they'll do all of this actually as they get certain notices. We call those notices to proceed. And so every action is actually driven by TxDOT, who says, okay, you know, design-build contractor, you can now perform these specific services. Communication is important on every project, but if it's a fast-paced project, like typically these design-build projects are, it is never more important. And I say that just really from experience. When we're working with the agents, and we call them acquisition service providers, those are the acquisition and relocation and agents who specialize in condemnation and title and so forth. When we're working on those individuals on the contractor side, keep in mind that during the procurement phase, TxDOT has reviewed all these proposals. And in those proposals, they had, you know, lists of all of these agents who had 5 years experience, 10 years experience, 20 years experience. So TxDOT made decisions to award that contractor the project based on what they saw. When we get to the project, we're ready to get started, we're looking for those agents. These are not projects to train on. There's no time for that, and I'm sure the contractor is appreciative of that. Not just that it's about not having the time to train, but you don't want property owners calling and saying, you know what, somebody just came and made an offer, been waiting for this project, for the last 5 years, and they couldn't even explain the process. What's going to happen if I don't accept the offer? Those aren't the kind of, calls we want to get. Plus, in order for these projects to continue the success, you want the public's perception of them to be, yeah, they came out, they told me exactly what was going to happen, and it happened. So that's why we really do look for those experienced agents. And sometimes I have to admit that it is hard to find them. The SPD, the SPD program approach, sorry, I had to take allergy medicine. The SPD program approach is a very dynamic approach, and it's a very dynamic environment. We have this motto, as the consultant, we don't have inboxes. So if Kerry is coming to give me something, he's going to task me with something. If I'm not there, then he's going to go give it to Steve or John or someone else in the office. We don't have an inbox because whatever that issue is, it needs to be resolved immediately today or as soon as possible. It's more than likely because something else is going to happen tomorrow, so we need to handle this today. Also, as the PMC, I don't ever really say we, we'll handle this because I have to handle it. That's what's a little different as a consultant for the SPD program, is that I have to take ownership of the issue. And I take responsibility for the issue. And everyone on our team, and Terry knows this too very well, we absolutely have to take ownership of it and we have to resolve it. I can't say, well, Carrie, I don't have access to your system, so I can't help you. That doesn't work. I've got to find a solution. I have to find a way to make it work. So we always say we never do take problems to the client or to TxDOT unless we have a solution with it. We have to be very careful, especially when we're partnering, that we don't take on risk. And that's very easy to do. Let's say that Ryan were to come to say, Liz, we've got a property owner. We made them the offer. 45 days have gone by. But you know what? I really think they're going to give us a counter offer next week. What do you think I should do? I'm not going to say, you know what, Ryan? I think you should give them time, maybe another 20 days. I bet we can get it worked out. Because then I've just taken that risk back to TxDOT. That's his schedule. What I'm going to do is say, Ryan, you know what? I suggest that you take one of those tools out of TxDOT's tool chest. The right-of-way division has given us some great language in the possession and use agreements. Why don't you use that? I'll never say something, or as a consultant, will never say anything that's going to bring the risk or especially delay back to TxDOT. We never give direction, we just give suggestions. And that is what's helped make the program successful. And it also helps as far as communication, because the contractor understands that also. But we do sit down and we partner. We use that term a lot. We do, and we have found success in partnering with, with the contractor, whether it's in task force meetings or whatever it may be. And I think Ryan's probably going to talk a little bit about that. This morning we heard the general say a few terms. He said transparency, ethical behavior, and integrity. And he also said, don't get complacent. And that's something that we absolutely have to keep thinking about and remembering day in and day out with these projects. They move so fast, but that doesn't mean that you're not going to follow the law. Doesn't mean you're going to circumvent a process. We're going to always do that, and we have to make sure, that we are being ethical about our actions. Every deliverable that we receive from the contractor, it's very well defined. And I did. This is an acquisition package. I brought it to you not just so much show you just the volume of paper, but it's to show you that a lot of work goes in to making an offer. So the contractor will, and as Don says, this is like we only want the contractor to come to us one time. So what they've done is they've put together, this happens to be an acquisition package, but they've got a draft offer letter, they've got a title curative plan, there is a survey that's been reviewed, there's an appraisal that's been reviewed. So as soon as this is approved, it's given back to the contractor, and we can say, okay, make an offer and go buy the right of way. And hopefully they'll be able to close and won't have to come back. But I guess really more so, the fact that we're able to, and as we're going through and I guess putting together these packages, there is a lot of communication between the contractor and TxDOT office to make sure that when they do submit that, all the components are correct. And the other part of that is by having that communication, we can also make sure that that deliverable is going to be the same and it's going to be consistent, whether the project is in El Paso or Houston or Austin or wherever it may be. And this is an idea of what our workflow looks like. It's a lot of boxes, it's very detailed, but what that does is it tells us, okay, here's where we are in the process, and we share this information with the contractor. That way we're all on the same page, and everybody understands what the expectations are. We absolutely follow the law, and we absolutely do not circumvent the law. But it doesn't mean that we don't try to think outside the box, that we don't try to look for innovations or ways to streamline the process. And most of the time, the way that we find these innovations is when we partner with the contractor. And I'll let Ryan talk about that.